So this video is not about chart types, but it is about making charts more readable, or the chart types that we've discussed already more readable. And in particular, it's about how do we bring axes into alignment to be in compliance with those guidelines by Cleveland and McGill and others. So remember, there was evidence that if you had, and it's completely obvious when you think about it, that if you have two plots and their axes are not aligned, meaning they're on different scales, it makes it much more difficult for users or viewers to take away like actual actionable insights. By putting these things on a common scale, we drastically reduce kind of the cognitive friction that viewers are experiencing as they're trying to figure out what the heck is going on. So let's do this. So let's do a year. We'll do a little time series plot. We'll do year to columns, and let's do internet usage and mobile usage. And this is really interesting because well, we'll talk about it when we get there. So internet usage and then mobile phone usage. Where is it? Mobile phone usage. Excellent. They're in alphabetical order. It's like not complicated. Okay, so notice here that we do have alignment on the vertical axis. I'm sorry, the horizontal axis. The year is fine. But the problem here is that the vertical axes are not aligned, meaning this one goes from 0 to 200 and this one goes from 0 to 800. I'm sorry, 0 to 80 rather. So how do we do this? So notice when I hover over, I get this little green triangle. And so if I drag this up like this, notice what it did. It actually created what we call a combined axis plot. And so by combined axis, I mean they are like actually on the same axis here. They are fundamentally like they are plotted on the same. And now to distinguish the two, I've had to introduce color as a design element to say internet usage versus mobile phone usage. So one thing, for instance, that's immediately clear here that was not clear to begin with is that mobile phone usage is growing drastically faster than internet usage. And this is because some countries have actually just kind of jumped over the internet, jumped over the computer in the sense that they're using the internet, but they're engaging on the internet through mobile phones rather than through kind of a landline connection. This is kind of an interesting trend that you might kind of care about in various contexts or arenas. So if we go instead to a new sheet here, let's do tourism. So let's do region as our columns. And we're going to do inbound and outbound. So we'll say inbound for rows and outbound for rows. So again, here we have two different issues here. We have kind of we have aligned horizontal axes but misaligned vertical axes. And so we can actually pull it up again, and now we have these things side by side. And this is much easier to say, like, okay, in some places, outbound tourism is higher than inbound tourism, and in other places, inbound is bigger than outbound. So it's just by putting them together, we make things a little bit easier. So notice if we drag it over here to this side, we get something slightly different. Let me just do that just a little too quick. If I take the same green triangle and I drive it over here rather than over here, on here I get a combined axis plot, meaning they're going to be on the same scale exactly. Over here, I get what we call a dual axis plot. And notice that on both sides, I have the numbers. So I have numbers on the left and I have numbers on the right. But notice that they are not the same number yet. So meaning that this line here represents 4,500 billion. Whereas that same line over here represents closer to 4,000 billion. And so what do I need to do? I need to synchronize these axes. So if I go over here on the right and I right click and I say synchronize axes, now it means the same thing on the left and on the right. Notice that the only real difference here is the display format. The display format is different in the sense that earlier we had stacked side-by-side bars, and here we have a circle plot. But there are other situations in which using a dual axis, meaning you have numbers on the left and on the right, it can be fundamentally better, or you have to do it this way versus a dual axis where actually they're on the same horizontal axis and the same vertical axis and the same horizontal axis. Let me explain that again. We have two options here, one in which we have the same axis for both variables and one in which we have two different axes, one on the left and one on the right. If you're comparing something like temperature and precipitation, those can't be on the same axis. They can't, because they don't have the same scale. They don't have the same numbers. So in that case, you might want to have a dual axis plot, where you have one set of numbers on the left and one set of numbers on the right, like precipitation over here and temperature over here. In other cases, you want to have them on the exact same scale. So it's really kind of a context-dependent choice about whether we do combined or dual axis. But we'll see over the course of the semester various flavors of both. I just want to introduce them here, even though they're not specifically chart types, in order to kind of show that there are ways that we can take existing chart types and make them more legible by kind of tweaking some of the options in Tableau.